Hello and welcome to today's video. I know we are well into the new year, but I wanted to give myself some more time to play with these palettes. I saw Samantha March do this, I believe it was in 2019, where she made a video ranking all the palettes that she purchased that year. So I'm gonna do it with my palettes I purchased in 2020. With one caveat, I also gave myself the goal of only purchasing 10 palettes last year, so you guys will also see if I stuck to that. I'm gonna go through and do mini reviews, some swatches of each one, and then at the end, I will rank them from 10 to number 1, or from worst to best. I will have linked in the description box Samantha's videos, plus any videos I have using these palettes in case you are curious. If you enjoyed this video while you're watching, please do go ahead and give it a thumbs up, and let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm going to pull out my phone because I kept a list of the palettes that I purchased in here. Otherwise, it would get lost in the clutter. I've mentioned this many times, but really what happened last year, of course, with COVID, I wasn't wearing makeup as much as I usually did. And I also had a project pan that had several palettes in it that I was trying to get through. So I didn't get to play with these palettes as much as I would have liked to, and that's why I also needed extra time into this year. So the first palette I purchased was in January, and that was the Morphe 35i Icy Fantasy. And boy, was this one a disappointment. It has collected some dust on the top. What drew me into this initially was the packaging and the fact that I didn't own a pastel palette, but it does fall into that category of products that I don't think I would purchase if it wasn't for me working at Ulta. I feel like that about many products that I grab. I wouldn't gravitate towards them if I just saw them on a website, but it's the fact that I saw it in person and the hype around a specific launch. This one was specifically a collab with Pony Park. And if you watched, I did a first impression video with this. I think I said it in the video. I had to restart. I want to say it was at least 3 times. I think it was the third look that I actually went with and posted. What I don't like about this is what you see in the pan is not what goes onto the lids. And I get that it is a pastel palette and it is a little bit lighter, but it should be able to build to that intensity, and it does not. It's more like a sheer wash of color, and it does not match what you actually see in the pan, especially the more colorful shades. I think this blue one is one that I tried to use, and I could not bring up the intensity of it. I did also try this with a white base, and it still didn't work out for me. Since then, and more recently, the way I've used this is just to take a little bit of the shimmer on my lid, or I've also used it in my inner corner, but it is not one that I regularly reach for. And I think this is probably going to be on the bottom of this ranking. All right. And then in February, this was before everything shut down, I bought the Smokey x Midas Cosmetics collab. And then I also got one from Colored Raine, and that was the Vivid Pigments palette. Let's talk about this one first. I have it upside down. I love Hannah, so I had to have this launch. I definitely wanted to support her. And this is the first product I've ever tried from Midas Cosmetics. It is the only one. I also want some of their gel liners, the little pigments in the pan. They're like water activated liners, but they aren't back in stock. But that is what I'm looking for from Midas. But as far as this palette goes, I do really like this. I used it again recently and was pleasantly surprised with how my look turned out. It is neutral, but you do get those pops of color. It's kind of basic, but that's okay. I like my neutrals. I like my basic palettes. The shimmers in here are really gorgeous. I love Nutty. And then let's also do Leno. I also really just liked Hannah, like when she went through and explained the shade names for each one. It was just really cool to see her have a collab that was successful. I have a hair and another hair. Very pretty. It's like a pink bluey kind of duochrome. I also really like the mattes in this palette, and I said it in a video, and you can see, I think this is the one, yeah, I've dipped into this one the most. Cold Brew is such a perfect base shade for me. It basically blends out to my skin tone. So even when I haven't been using this palette altogether, I have just gone in and reached for this shade. So for now, I'm gonna put this in like a mid tier. I'm kind of mapping it out on my floor so I can kind of get a visual. This next one was also a disappointment, and I did a palette bingo with this, and that was the Colored Raine Vivid Pigments. I wanted this so badly. It was on in my bullet journal. I have this whole beauty wishes spread, or I did in 2019, and I think 2018 as well. It lived there, and this was on my list. I believe it was Jay Kissa I saw do a video with this palette, and I wanted it so badly. It went out of stock and then came back because Colored Raine reformulated it to be vegan, which is a great thing, but I don't think the performance of this is the same that it was based on how highly it was regarded before they changed the formula. I remember having such issues with this. I did do a palette bingo, which is already kind of challenging, especially with these bright colors. And I do think I liked my finished look, but it was another one where I think I did the look and then took it off because it just didn't blend very well. These mattes are so very dry, and I had such a hard time getting them to blend out the way that I wanted to. The shades did not work well in blending together either. Maybe it's just me and my skill level, but I had a really hard time with this palette. Looking at it, it looks stunning, but I really haven't reached for it since. This is probably, I think, the only one that I did not reach for again going into this year because I just haven't had time to sit there and struggle with it. Maybe I will again soon, and we'll see what I think about it. Maybe I will give it another chance because I really do love the color story. I think it looks like absolutely stunning. And Colored Raine is a brand that I would like to try more products from. Let me go ahead and swatch some of these. I think it was Squad. Yeah, this formula is so dry. It was Squad, the Hunter Green, that I was just so intrigued by. And you can see it's really just not there. That intensity is not there that you see in the pan either. It's built up a little more. This is the green shade called Level Up. So that one has more of the build. Let me do one more. Do Lemon Drop, which is the yellow shade. This is another one I should probably try with a white base just to see what can happen, but I've been a little fearful of trying this palette again just because I struggled with it so hard the first couple of times. So it's also sadly going to go towards the bottom. If you guys have that palette, please let me know your thoughts, especially if you have the reformulated one. Was it hard for you to work with as well, or is it just me? I really would love to see the original version that wasn't vegan just to compare them side by side. I'm sure there's a video of that somewhere on YouTube. All right, and then we skip a bunch of time because I didn't buy another palette till July, which of course was the Purex Rawbeautykristi launch. Now, if you got this palette, or if you were on social media at all, if you're anywhere in the beauty space, you know that launch was a complete shit show. It was so bad. At one point, I had my phone up. George had his phone trying to get on there. We had it on our computer. And every time I would get this palette and the lashes into my cart, it would get kicked out. And finally, I think towards like the end of the night, I think I finally checked out. It was probably after midnight. They eventually did a waiting line kind of thing. And I did finally get my hands on this launch, but I know a lot of people didn't. And they did a second launch later on. I love the design of this. All of Kristi's doodles. It's so freaking cute. The more colorful side, and then the neutrals. I love the way you can just flip it over. It's very handy, very easy to use. The size is nice. It doesn't take up too much space while getting ready. And I like that there aren't like a million shimmers. You only really get those two. It's more matte heavy, which a lot of palettes, that's not the case for. I love my shimmers, but I feel like this really helps you get creative with colors. The fact that there are more mattes in here. Every time I've used this palette, I've really loved my makeup. Camelot, of course, that mustardy shade. I love a good mustard. And then some of the browns in here, while they are brown tones, like the copper boxes, that one's a really unique brown tone. And Told You also has some orange in it. Those three shades, so pretty. And then I also want to swatch some of the bold side. And I also have to give props to Pure. Aside from the actual launch, I think they really killed this formula, and they're not a brand that I hear anyone ever talking about their eyeshadow formula. I can't say I've actually tried. I think I had a palette from them that I got through work, and then I ended up decluttering it because it just didn't really interest me, and I knew I wouldn't get a lot of use out of it. But from what I understand, I do think that they really upped their formula for Kristi. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's just my assumption based on the fact that no one was really talking about their palettes before. We have Mi Orange, Garden State. They swatch so pretty. And then Tribute. Maybe that one not so much, but the other two, they feel really creamy. I don't know, this is a palette that I very much enjoy using, and I was just so happy for Kristi, for her to make this collaboration. She is my favorite YouTuber, and she has been for a really long time, so it's just really awesome to watch her thriving and doing so well. She had another collab later on in the year, which I also have in front of me. This one is also going to be like mid-tier-ish, maybe towards the top, but I think I'm going to put it above the Midas. The next palette or palettes I purchased, and this is where you guys can see if I stuck to my guns about the rule of 10. I bought 3 of the mini bite-sized palettes. So when you add up how many I purchased, it's 11 or 9, depending on if you count these as one. I totally do, just because these are so cheap. They are $3. And for that alone, because I really like this formula, and again, they haven't let me down anytime that I've used them, I'm going to put them on the higher end. But let's swatch some of these. So I have, this is Cream and Sugar. Swatch some of the shimmers in this one. So creamy, very, very pretty. And then I have Pumpkin Pie. I'll do a shimmer swatch from this one as well. It's like a beautiful copper orangey tone. It's really great for blue-green eyes. And then Hot Jalapeno, which I think is the one I used in the video I did with these. I did a first impressions video doing a full face of e.l.f. I hadn't really tried much from them before that video. And I have to say, e.l.f. like killed it. They are like my favorite brand of 2020. I know they've been around forever, but I just kind of slept on them. And there are so many products from that initial video that I still love and use, especially the Keep Your Curl mascara. That has been like my holy grail mascara lately. And I don't know why no one ever talks about it. I think I will swatch all of this one just because it's so pretty. Do a pinky swatch there. We'll build that one up a little bit more. I don't mind having to build my shadows. It's more that if they can't meet the intensity that I see in the pan, that's when I get disappointed. I don't mind building them up because that allows for room for error, which I do make plenty of mistakes. One more time. It's like a teal green. It's kind of like the one from the Colored Raine palette. A little bit. That one's a little bit more green. But yeah, these are gorgeous. If you have not tried one of these, you won't be wasting your money. $3, you really can't beat that. And like I said, for the performance alone, the fact that I was wowed so much by these and the price point, they're gonna get a higher ranking. I think I also want to put these above the Midas, not above Pure though. And then in November, I was busy. I bought 3 palettes, the first being the Huda Beauty Naughty Nude palette. I was so excited when I saw this palette. I know some people were turned off by it, especially some of the textures in this palette. You had that one glossy shade that got all the hype. I did a video with this. I do think it was just a first impressions or a get ready with me. It wasn't dedicated to just this palette. And I remember liking the look, but I only reached for this like one other time since that video. Maybe twice. I think some of the shimmers I have also reached for. As someone who loves the new Nude palette from Huda Beauty, I'm obsessed with that palette. I reach for it all the time. There are mattes in there that I just think are so perfect for me and are easy everyday shades that I can wear. I'm very surprised I did not hit pan on it during my Project Pan, but I came very close to it. And I was thinking this was going to be like a reincarnation of that palette. I thought I was going to have the same love for this one that I do with that one, and that has not been the case. It is one that I think could easily just get lost in my collection if I don't have it in front of me. I can see myself not reaching for it, even though I did like it and I did enjoy the performance of it. I didn't really have any trouble with it or any issues in it. There's just nothing in it that really calls out to me. But like I said, I also don't have a ton of experience using this, and I definitely haven't used every shade in here. Let me do a little close up and then we will do some swatches as well. I've yet to try the glossy shade, and I would like to do that at some point. What's described as the 3 multi-reflective shimmer cream. I remember the marble ones. Those were really pretty. So here is one. It's called Provocative. Has a slight shift to it from like a pink to a peach. It is really pretty. I don't know why I don't reach for this. I just don't. And then the 5 High Shine Buttery Metallics, which I believe Irresistible is one of those. And it does feel very buttery going on. That is gorgeous. When I put it on my hand, it's stunning. I don't know why I don't reach for this. God, I feel like I really can't give it a poor ranking just because I haven't reached for it, but nothing really draws me in. And I don't know why. That should draw me in. What's wrong with me? I'll put it in the middle for now and then we'll see what happens. Did you buy this palette? I think people were like so either for or against this one. It got a lot of hype just because of was it trypophobia? Trypophobia? I don't think it has a T. Just because that triggered it for so many people and people were so curious about that gloss shade. There was a lot of hype surrounding this launch, but then no one really talked about it and I haven't seen many people use it since. And then the next two I did not do a video with. So this is a Forest Sight Rawbeautykristi times ColourPop. This was the collab that I thought was going to happen first for her. It was always kind of teased, but Pure got it first. They had the first collab and then this came afterwards. Also had to have this because I love Rawbeautykristi, but I think this is one I would have picked up anyway without her name attached to it. And that also speaks volumes to this palette as well. I love the design of it. I think it's so cute. It is so Kristi. All the little mushrooms on there. It's very cute. And even just the campaign photos around it. She looked beautiful and ethereal. She was very pregnant and she just looked like a gorgeous goddess. I've reached for this, I want to say maybe 4 times. That's what it looks like on the outside and then the inside. This is my kind of a color story. It's neutrals with some color. You got some pretty shimmers in there. And I do cool tones sometimes, but I love the warmer tones in here, especially the yellow and the Rainier shade, that burnt orange. That's my favorite color. When I say my favorite color is orange, that's the kind of color, that burnt, crispy kind of orange. We'll swatch those two. And then Fiddlehead is also gorgeous, this olive shade. These are the kind of shadows I'm just really comfortable with. Definitely my wheelhouse. Let me build up Fiddlehead a little more. And then Evergreen I will also swatch. I was going to do a video using this palette and I don't remember what happened, but it never did happen. But I certainly reached for it behind the scenes. I've also used the liners that came with this launch. The only thing that I picked up that I haven't purchased or I haven't used is the gloss. There were 2 glosses and I did get one of them and I haven't even opened it yet. This is one too where I'm definitely going to keep the outer component. I do that with a lot of the palettes that I really like. Do I like this more than the Midas? I'm gonna say yes. So it's going to go up with the e.l.f. and the Pure times Rawbeautykristi. Next to last, I have the Novella Secret Palette. I think this is so pretty. I love the design on here. This and their other one, it's blue. Let me see what the name of that one is. Dreamy 2 is the name of it. We have both of them at work and they were constantly just calling my name. The Dreamy 2 is a little bit more heavy in the shimmers and this one has more mattes, which is why I went with this one. And I just thought I would get more use out of this. I just think it's so pretty. Again, definitely going to keep the cardboard for this one. The outer, and then on the inside, I really just love some of the mattes in here. Aside, obviously the shimmers look really pretty. The Rosemary shade is gorgeous and Play Hard, which does have a reflect to it. It has a little bit of like a green, lime green kind of tint. I'll show it in a second. But aside from those, this brown shade really spoke to me. And then this one up here, it's got a little bit of pink in it. And I just thought it was so pretty. I'm not gonna lie, the first time I used this palette, I wasn't very impressed. I think I struggled with actually blending it, but the next time I used it, I loved it. So I don't know if it was the base that I used or what it was, I can't remember, but I was a little disappointed at first, but now I am happy with it. I am glad I picked this up. I was eyeing it. I wanna say it was like for several months before I actually bit the bullet and got this palette. Let me swatch. I'm gonna do Rosemary, Play Hard, Contigo. And this is so soft. This matte is like super, super buttery feeling. Not dry at all. And then also aesthetic. If you guys have any palettes from Novella you love, I would love to hear what they are. I haven't tried too many things from them. I have one of their skin glazings, and then I also have a lipstick, or 2. I think I have 2 lipsticks. Very slight green shift on that one. It's like a lime green when you put it on the lid. I see the shift way more in person than what it looks like on camera. Either way, it's very pretty and I am happy I purchased this in the long run. It's gonna go like a mid-tier. And then the last palette I purchased in 2020 was the Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse. I really tried to resist this palette. It came out, the launch happened, and I was like, no, you do not need that. Kind of basic, you have those shades already, but then I started seeing reviews of it, which I normally will not look at reviews if I know I'm going to buy something, especially if I'm going to film with that something, because I don't want to be biased when I go into filming. But I started seeing this used in videos, and I was like, never mind, I need to have that palette. And I have to say, Lunar Beauty really has yet to disappoint me. I love their lip gloss formula. I think it's beautiful. The blush palette is gorgeous. And this is my second palette that I own from Lunar Beauty. I also have the Moon Spell. I think it's called Moon Spell. And I loved everything about that one, especially the packaging. Well, let me actually show the front of this first because the holographic moon on there is so cool. And then the inside of this palette. Nice mixture between mattes and shimmers. I think all the shades in here go very well together. You have warm tones, you have some cool tones. I definitely have to swatch some of these. I think my only complaint, and I think just because I remember this just because it is more recently filmed, was that this Night Sky shade I could have done without. It's not really a shimmer so much as it is a matte with glitter in it, and I just don't use those kind of shades. I did try it. I think I said I was going to try it in a video, and I did end up doing it like a liner, and it was fine. I wouldn't do that again. But other than that, the rest of this palette I think is gorgeous. And I did do a two-tone look with this palette, so I have tried most of the shades. I will swatch one matte, the Summer Sky shade I remember really liking. But really for me, it's the shimmers in this palette. They're like molten metals. They are a little chalky. Definitely fall out with this palette. If you're not careful, I would recommend doing your eye makeup first, which I always do because I know I'm gonna make a mess. But if you don't, if you do your base first, that would be my recommendation. Adamantium. This is such an intense silver. Gold Dust and Deep Sea. And those four, absolutely stunning. I'm so glad I eventually caved and picked up this palette because I'm really, really happy with it. I also really would love to try the brushes that came out with this collection. I passed on those because I was already buying this palette, but I've only seen them used in videos maybe once or twice. So I would love some feedback if you have tried the brushes. I'm not going to say where I'm going to put this one just because we have to have some element of mystery while I'm going through these. Before we rank them, and while it's still on my mind, if you want to see me do this next year, do let me know. I don't think I'm going to give myself a limit this time. I think I bought maybe, the only palettes I bought so far this year, I got the MCR times Hip Dot palette, My Chemical Romance, and that came, I think I purchased that in December, but it didn't come till January. And technically my husband bought it for me, so it didn't really count. And then I also got the Animal Crossing X ColourPop launch, of course, the whole collab. I got the whole collection. I needed to have that. So if you want to see me do this again, I will keep a note in my phone throughout the year and we can do this again next year. Let's get to ranking these palettes. All right, the bottom spot. And I'm between these two for different reasons. It could go either way. This palette, like the question I ask myself is, what would I be most likely to declutter if I decluttered something tomorrow? The answer to that is this one, because the price of this one was much higher. But also, with that said, I should like this one for it being $50. I think it was about $50, maybe a little bit more. I think I'm going to put Icy Fantasy in the very bottom. Yes, that's what I'm going to do. And because it doesn't build up to that intensity, I don't see myself reaching for it. There's not a lot about it that makes me gravitate towards it. For this one, I want to give it another shot. It has been so long since I've used this palette. I'm using different bases now. Maybe I could have a better time with it. So I'm going to put this in the number 10 slot or the 11th or 9th spot, depending on how you look at it. But this is going to go on the very bottom and then this one right behind it. And then in slot number 8, I know it's not technically 8, but it's what I'm going to say because it's what makes sense in my head. I'm going to do the Huda Naughty Nude palette. Again, this breaks down to the price that I paid for it. These are $65, I believe. I'll already have had the banners up, but I know these are quite expensive and it was the most expensive of all the ones that I just showed. And I feel like I should love it a little bit more for that. Also, too, the fact, like I said, there's nothing between the time that I purchased it and now that made me really want to reach for it. Maybe that's on me because after swatching it again, they are gorgeous. Maybe it just didn't go onto the lid that way. I can't really remember. I'm going to try to use this again, but for now, this is going to go in number 8. I definitely need to give that one some more love. I'm going to put Novella next, and really simply because I haven't had as much time with this one as I have had with the next one. That first time I used it, I did struggle with it. I had that issue with blending. I don't know if it was the shades I was using or the base or just if I was having an off day, but I did love the way that it looked the next time that I used it and the time after that. I've done 3 looks with this now. I think the packaging is gorgeous. It's one that I would definitely put towards the front of my palette display, and I'm glad I gave this another chance. I didn't return it. Next, Midas X Smoky Glow. I think this is such an easy palette to use. It's not one that I would really have to think about when it comes to color combination. I could just throw it on my lid and be happy with it. I never had an issue using this palette. I like the thought that went behind it. I always like when a white shade is included because it helps blend out those more colorful shades. The shimmers in here I think are killer. They're stunning. And yes, very happy for Hannah and this collab. I would love to see her do more, and I would buy those collabs as well. In spot number 4, we're getting down to the wire. I'm gonna put At Farthest Sight. Again, this color story, it's right up my alley. This is pretty much what I would create if I were to make a palette. I love rich fall tones, those oranges, purples, greens with the neutrals. Those are, if I'm not careful, like those are the only shades I will put on my lid, and pink sometimes, but the greens and the orangey tones, those are my favorites. There's also just a lot of hype around this palette because it was so long overdue. I'd been wanting to see Kristi do a collab with ColourPop for so long, and I was really glad that it finally happened. This launch also went pretty smoothly as well. I remember having to be on their site very fast in order to get it, but I was able to get my hands on it a lot smoother than Pure's. And then in spot number 3, I have to give it to the 3 e.l.f. bite-sized shadows. The performance and the price alone, this was the cheapest thing that I purchased, and I think the performance of these shadows outperforms some of the other ones that I've just gone over, and for that alone I gotta give it to e.l.f. and they are definitely deserving of spot number 3. If you have any of these, let me know what shades you like. Let me know which ones you have. I think there's 8 of them, and I would love to collect all of them. Actually, maybe it's 9 because they also just did that mint collection. All right, and we are down to 2, and I think I'm gonna do this the same way every pageant ever has been done, and I will say the winner first. And I think the number 1 spot, I have to give it to Lunar Beauty Eternal Eclipse. Based on the fact that I really tried to talk myself out of this palette, I told myself it was like everything I already owned and that I did not need it. And then when I actually used it, I was just so impressed. I think the shades in here, while the colors are very basic and they're very simple, the performance is really there, and I have not used anything that's like the shimmers in this one, especially the adamantium shade. That is the most blinding silver I've ever seen, and if Manny continues to make palettes this way, I will buy every single one of them. The first time that I used this, when I did the dual tone look, I was so happy with my makeup. I was very pleased with the way it came out, and the couple of times that I've used it since then, I was also very pleased. I never struggled with it. Like I said, there is going to be some fallout, so just be aware of that issue, but everything else I really enjoy. So this is number 1. Let me know if you agree, if you've tried this palette. And that leaves the second place, the runner-up, will be Purex Rawbeautykristi. The versatility of this palette is what really puts it there for me. The fact that I can do bold or neutral and all of the shades go so well together. The design is also really cool where you could just flip it right over. I don't know that I've seen that done before. It probably has been, but not in anything that I owned. I like that it's compact. It fits easily on my vanity or my desk wherever I'm doing my makeup. That is something that I do think about and consider when I'm purchasing makeup. I don't want this big, huge, clunky thing. And it's great for travel, even though I'm not going to be doing any of that anytime soon. But yes, I love this little palette. Happy for Kristi. If you got both of Kristi's collabs, I would also like to know which one you liked better. And that's it. That is all the palettes I purchased last year and how I would rank them. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you purchased any of these palettes, I want to know your thoughts. I'd love to hear what your favorite palettes were of last year so I can go ahead and grab them this year maybe. If you enjoyed this video, do be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to see me and more of my remarks, please subscribe if you haven't already. I thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you, and I will see you soon.